6:38, Nashville's morning news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning to you, friends. Don't forget, big announcement today at 3 o'clock here on Super Talk 99.7. Also, if you are looking for us on YouTube, we have been, Jonthan Fahey, you'll love this. We broadcast our show on YouTube, and they put us in timeout, apparently, for like 24 hours. So as a former federal prosecutor, if we choose to take some legal action against YouTube, can you, represent us over here in Nashville?
Yeah, we can certainly look into it.
we'll start crowdfunding your retainer. All right.
Wow.
So let me ask you a couple of questions. First of all, you used to be director of ICE, former federal prosecutor as well. I should have asked you this earlier, Jonthan, but I didn't. But as a guy who used to work in the Trump administration, you're very media savvy. Of course, you're on Maria Bartiromo all the time. And have you thought about maybe going back to the Trump administration?
I'll give the standard. Yeah, I'm happy where I am. But no, I actually am really happy doing what I do. But if they asked, I'd certainly consider if they asked. Because I do think it's so important, particularly after the first Trump administration. Hey, people. It's important that he gets his agenda pushed forward, and he had so many obstacles that were frankly unfair during the first term that I want him to succeed, and I want him to have every chance to succeed. So if I can help, I certainly will.
All right. So a couple of things. Number one is he has given his first interview with Kirsten Welker over there at NBC. It was literally just a phone call. And so NBC had Kirsten Welker on talking about what Donald Trump told her in this phone interview. Here's what Welker says that Trump says about mass deportation.
And he really highlighted the need to make the border safe and secure, indicated that would be among the first orders of business that he would tackle. And I asked him, well, what is the price tag to this mass deportation plan that you have talked about? What specifically would it look like? How would it work? And he said, there is no price tag. You have no choice. So-
All right. So she's right. And Donald Trump is right. We have no choice. We have to do this. I mean, the illegal immigration, it really does impact everything. It impacts our elections. It impacts crime. It impacts our cities, big and small. It impacts our national budget, our expenditures, local and federal level. I mean, this illegal immigration, it does impact everything. So President Trump says, sky's the limit, no price tag. And on the surface, you think, well, that could get really expensive. But you know what? The Washington, D.C. has been operating under this notion of no price tag for Ukraine. So I think that we can afford to spare a few bucks to kick out the bad guys and, some of the other folks who came into our country illegally.
You're exactly right. And I'm glad you said that about Ukraine. I think, what are we, like 100, 200 billion in on that one right now? So, but I think what's really important, and the media will do all their tricks to avoid talking about this, but it's been reported, New York Post reported it, that the cost just to taxpayers, not to all the other costs of illegal immigration, was $150 billion last year. So we probably save money as taxpayers by removing illegal aliens. And that doesn't even count things like the decreased, quality of your education for your kids, or decreased access to health care, increased costs of housing. All of those things are caused, illegal immigration causes those to all rise or to the quality to decrease. So if you actually said, well, the taxpayers probably end up netting on this, certainly in the long term and probably even on the short term. So that's a little game they're playing. They somehow can find, immediately seize on the cost to deport people, but they never, ever, other than a few outlets, talked about how much illegal immigration costs American people on a daily basis, not to mention undermining the rule of law and the most important thing, security and public safety.
Well, yeah.
So, so he can do this, and he's going to focus on the criminals first, and that's another important thing. The Democrats have been fighting tooth and nail to keep criminals in this country who are here illegally, which I've never heard a serious justification about, and the media, of course, just ignores that with their sanctuary city. So, but they're going to say mass deportation and try to find an example of some family being separated.
Well, I guarantee you. Yeah, Jonthan Fahey, I guarantee you that's coming. Trump's going to be focusing on, Tren de Aragua and MS-13 and all these bad guys coming into our country. And by the way, they don't even have to be members of gangs to be committing crimes. I mean, we know that there's people that have come in and they've committed crimes. And so that's the easy part of the equation. The harder part, as you and I both know, is going to be if he's able to get out all of the criminals, then you've got to start going down the road of, okay, we've deported all the criminals. That's the easy part. Now, how do you decide who they start getting rid of? People that came across our southern border. They haven't necessarily committed any crimes other than coming across our southern border. That is where it's going to get really difficult. And here in this country, we're going to have some very difficult conversations. It's going to be difficult, Jonthan, when we get to the mass deportation, not of the criminals, but of people that have come into our country illegally. I mean, they number the millions and the millions. I mean, based on your experience, where do you start with all those people?
Yeah, I think that is the harder question. But, you really do have, so many criminals that you will take a lot of time. And but I do think there is, people are going to be sympathetic. People came here if they abided by the law and didn't commit crimes and they're, otherwise working. Those are more sympathetic. But if you think about it, and I've been saying this since 2021, the Democrats' whole plan was to bring in as many illegals as they can and then just say, oh, my God, we can't deport them, but we'll now secure the border and give them all amnesty. So we all knew this was coming, right? And so they're going to fight to keep these people in here. But, if you think about it, if one of us, if you or I go on vacation this summer and love the country we go to another country and decide we want to stay, if they kick us out, we wouldn't feel like we were treated unfairly. It's
right.
Like, they've already got the benefit of being here during the time they were here. I mean, and when you talk about back to the $150 billion a year, that means they're getting the net benefit, not the American citizens. So, they've already benefited. So, yep. But I think those will be the tougher questions, and it needs to be done in a way that, the perception is not unfairness, but I really think the criminals would really take the lion's part of this administration because there's so many people sitting in jail, so many people that are criminals that they've released, so many people are getting arrested that this administration, I mean, it's astonishing to me. They do not even deport convicted felons in many cases in this country currently. It just blows me away. Well, so there is a lot to do.
Yeah, the good news is that's going to change. Letitia James, New York Attorney General, she made news yesterday by basically saying that she was going to work really hard to keep Donald Trump at bay. And it was almost like Gavin Newsom did the same thing, but focusing on Letitia James.
And we are prepared, my friends, to fight back. Thank you.
Yeah, so she's a little odd. Mike Davis, and that's, I mean, she sounds vile, but she also just sounds a little weird. There's just no other way for me to say it. And I've played all that audio earlier today and also yesterday. But Mike Davis, who apparently is vying to be Donald Trump's attorney general, had this message for Letitia James.
Let me just say this to Big Tish James, the New York attorney general. I dare you. I dare you to try to continue your lawfare against President Trump in his second term, because listen here, sweetheart, we're not messing around this time, and we will put your fat ass in prison for conspiracy against rights, and I promise you that. So think long and hard before you want to violate President Trump's constitutional rights or any other American's constitutional rights. It's not going to happen again.
He also took aim at Fulton County, Atlanta, of course, Attorney General Fani Willis, who brought charges against Donald Trump for his supposed efforts to overturn the 2020 election. And we all remember what happened in the state of New York with Letitia James, where she went after Trump for inflating, he didn't, but inflating the worth of his properties. Then Judge Engron fines Trump up to $450+ million. We all remember all that. I'm just going to tell you where I'm going with this, Jonthan. I really like the fact that they are going in, it would seem, with a bit of an enemies list when it comes to the lawfare against former president, now current president-elect Donald Trump, because they've made his life a living hell, and they've done it utilizing this lawfare.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, and I've known Mike for a long time, and he's tuned into this stuff, and it's funny that the real outrageous thing was Letitia James's statement, because there's nothing that Donald Trump has done right now. There's not one policy he's seeking to enact that's unlawful. So she's basically saying if he enacts the policies he wants to, I'm going to be trying to harm him, legally. I guess that's what she said. Hers was an implicit threat. And then we know from what you said, the earlier case where he borrowed money and paid it back, and then he gets a $450 million fine.
There were no victims. There were no victims.
It was insane, and everyone knows that. Like, even every serious person, if you talk to them, on the side, they're like, those New York cases, both hers and Alvin Bragg, were total nonsense. So I think Mike's point is, hey, we're not starting this, but if you come after him with these illegitimate legal cases, we're not just going to sit here and take it. We saw what happened last time. You're not going to derail his presidency with all of this nonsense, because if you look at Donald Trump's presidency, they kneecapped him in so many ways with these, the Russia thing, the Mueller investigation. All of these things were massive distractions and made it harder for him to implement the agenda he was elected on. And it's like, they need to, settle down, and they should, it shows what happened with the Democratic Party is they are more interested in hurting Donald Trump than helping the American people. And that's why they really want to have some introspection. They should say, hey, maybe we should have toned the Donald Trump stuff down and looked at the American people, their lives, what we could make better. But the easier move for them, and they get, cred within their party, is just to go after Donald Trump and call him names and look for something to be offended about. I'm sure they're all, bedwetting about what Mike Davis said. They finally got over the comedian that said the supposed offensive joke that they spent 2 days, trying to outdo each other by how offended they were. I think people are so sick of this garbage. And, but I think Mike's put them on notice. Hey, no lawfare. He's not saying we're going to initiate it, but we're not going to sit back and let them just derail a president.
Well, what's going to be interesting is the governor of Massachusetts and Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. They both have said they're trying to Trump-proof their states, and the governor of Massachusetts actually said, we will not cooperate at a state level with any mass deportation effort by Donald Trump, which was stunning to me, because Trump is literally saying and has said that he is going after the Tren de Araguas and the MS-13s first. It seems like just a stunning statement from the governor for the state of Massachusetts in 45 seconds or less. What can Trump do if the local governors and local state legislatures refuse to cooperate at the state level with Donald Trump?
Pull a full Ron DeSantis. Remember when they brought 49 illegal immigrants to Martha's Vineyard, which is in Massachusetts? Hey, why don't we just take all the illegal immigrants and stick them in Massachusetts and see how quickly they say uncle and decide to cooperate. But you're right. They won't even cooperate kicking out criminals, and they're going to try to say, they're trying to separate families. But it's shameful that they'll put their own citizens at risk to stick a thumb in the eye of Donald Trump. But we know what happened to Martha's Vineyard. They did not even get to stay for a cup of clam chowder before they kicked 49 people out. They couldn't even take 49 people on that island, which is huge and has a lot of empty homes throughout most of the year.
Man, it is going to be a fun 4 years. And Jonthan Fahey, I know that you'll help guide us through all of the conversations, and always appreciate having you on Nashville's Morning News. Have a great weekend.